Some accusations don't come with a chance to explain. You know what actually happened, and still, you're the one carrying the weight of it. Scripture doesn't rush past this, and it doesn't pretend it's easy. I want to walk you through what it actually says when you're silent and it costs you. This is one of those places that feels deeply unfair. Not just uncomfortable, but wrong. You're not staying quiet because you don't have anything to say. You're staying quiet because speaking would make it worse, or because the moment to defend yourself never really came. And what makes it heavier is this. You're telling the truth, and it's still not enough. Scripture does not ignore this kind of moment, but it also doesn't respond to it the way we expect. Number 1, when silence is not weakness. Isaiah 53. There's a line in Isaiah that most people read quickly. He was oppressed and he was afflicted, yet he opened not his mouth. He is brought as a lamb to the slaughter. That's not describing someone who couldn't defend themselves. It's describing someone who chose not to. And that changes how you read it. Because this silence isn't passive. It's not confusion. It's not helplessness. It's restraint. The kind of restraint that looks like loss in real time. Most people assume that if you're right, you should speak and be heard. But this passage shows something else. There are moments where truth is real and still not immediately recognized. And Scripture doesn't call that failure. Number 2, when being right doesn't lead to being defended. Matthew 26-27. When Jesus is accused, falsely, publicly, aggressively, he doesn't answer the record the way we expect. He answers almost nothing. Pilate even asks him directly, essentially saying, "Answerest thou nothing? Behold how many things they witness against thee." And the text says, he gave no answer. That's hard to sit with, because everything in us expects God to step in at that point, to clarify, to expose the lie. But instead, the silence continues. And not because the truth doesn't matter, but because immediate vindication is not always how God works. That's the part people don't say out loud. Number 3, when silence feels like losing. Psalm 38. David describes a moment like this in Psalm 38. He says, "I was as a deaf man that heareth not, and I was as a dumb man that openeth not his mouth." But he tells you why. "For in thee, O Lord, do I hope. Thou wilt hear, O Lord my God." That's not silence because he has nothing to say. It's silence because he has nowhere else to take it. And that's a different kind of weight. Because now you're not just dealing with the accusation, you're dealing with the delay, the space between what's true and what's known. And Scripture doesn't pretend that gap is small. Number 4, the part most people skip. 1 Peter 2:19-23. This is the passage most people don't like to linger on. It says, "For this is thankworthy, if a man for conscience toward God endure grief, suffering wrongfully." That alone is hard, but then it points back to Christ, who, when he was reviled, reviled not again. When he suffered, he threatened not, but committed himself to him that judgeth righteously. That word committed is doing a lot of work, because it means something was handed over. Not ignored, not denied, handed over. The need to be cleared, the urgency to be understood, the pressure to correct what's being said. All of it. And that doesn't feel natural. It feels like letting go of something you have every right to hold on to. If this is where you are, pause here for a second. Not to resolve it, just to acknowledge it. Because Scripture is not asking you to pretend this doesn't hurt. Number 5. Why Scripture doesn't rush to defend the innocent. Romans 12:19. There's a reason the Bible keeps repeating this pattern. "Dearly beloved, avenge yourselves not, but rather give place to wrath. For it is written, 'Vengeance is mine, I will repay, saith the Lord.'" That's not just about revenge, it's about timing. It's about who carries the responsibility of setting things right. Because the instinct to defend yourself immediately is often tied to the fear that if you don't, no one will. And Scripture answers that fear carefully, not quickly. It shifts the weight, not away from justice, but away from your control over it. And that's where this becomes difficult in a different way. Because now the question isn't, am I right? It's, can I release the outcome of being proven right? There's a kind of silence that comes from fear, and Scripture never asks for that. But there's another kind of silence that comes from knowing the truth and not forcing it to surface on your timeline. That's the one these passages keep pointing to. This doesn't mean the accusation doesn't matter. It doesn't mean your name doesn't matter. It doesn't mean truth will stay hidden forever. But it does mean this: Scripture is more patient with justice than we are, and that patience can feel like absence if you're in the middle of it. If multiple of these passages feel close to your life right now, they're all gathered in one place at Scripture Refuge. Free, no ads, link in the description. And if this is your situation, you're not the only one sitting in it. There's no clean resolution to hand you here, because the Bible doesn't rush this part, but it does give you something steady to hold on to. That silence in these moments is not the same as being unseen, and being misjudged is not the same as being abandoned. Those are not the same thing, even if they feel like it right now. So if you're carrying something you didn't do, and you don't get to explain it yet, stay here for a moment. Not to fix it, just to let this question sit honestly. If God sees clearly, even when no one else does, what does it mean to trust Him with what hasn't been set right yet?